What am I trying to say here? I don't know. Hey everyone, it's Maya back again with another video. Today I am attempting to do my first wrap-up video. In the month of May, I was able to read 7 books. Let me double check. Yes, 7 books. This is exciting for me because that's probably the most amount of books that I have read in a month in a long time. So the first book that I finished is Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari. The book is talking about how people nowadays go about finding relationships, cultivating them, establishing them, and the different venues that we use to find, you know, the one or soulmates. And so he touches on online dating, texting, dating apps, and also how to make it work once you have found that one that you click with. And throughout the whole book, he has sprinkles of himself, so his own experiences and his comedic elements. While you're going through the main topic, you'll kind of go on this rabbit trail because he's talking about something else, and as you're going down that trail you just laugh because you're like, okay, when are we going to get back to the main topic? But I just think it's hilarious. I will say that it took me a while to really get into the book. I don't know if other people had that same issue, but once I got into the groove of it, I really enjoyed it. For me, when I think about books that I have borrowed from the library, my ultimate stamp of approval is whether or not I would buy the book and make that commitment. And so for Modern Romance, I will say that I would probably borrow the book again and flip through it a couple times, but I don't think that I liked it enough to buy it. The next book that I was able to read in the month of May was The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. The Catcher in the Rye is about 16-year-old Holden Caulfield. In the beginning of the book, he is attending a prep school, but due to his behavior and academics, he finds that he has been asked to leave the school. And because of that, he thinks, you know what, expletive this, I'm gonna go out there and go and live my life before I have to tell my parents that I've gotten kicked out of school. And so throughout that journey, he is going throughout the city, meeting different people, having these experiences that you wouldn't necessarily think a 16-year-old would have, and questioning everything that is around him. I was surprised by how much I liked it. For some reason, I had this idea that Holden was going to be this extremely angsty character with no feelings and slightly butthole-ish, but as I was reading the book, I could really identify with some of the thoughts and emotions that he was going through. And even though he often put on a front of being standoffish, deep down he was really a very sweet character and thoughtful. I will be buying a copy of The Catcher in the Rye so I can read it later on in the future. Next book that I was able to read in the month of May was The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. The Bell Jar follows our main character, Esther Greenwood, who is at the start of the book an intern at a magazine. While she is an intern for this magazine, there are several events that take place where she finds that she no longer wants that life for herself. You start to witness her descent into this despair and into this really deep and dark place. You see potential treatment options for her. You see how she responds to this. With this book, I very much enjoyed how Sylvia Plath wrote through this person's experience. In one part of the book, Esther was asked to go to an event that she would have leapt at the chance to go, and she says that even though her mind wanted to say yes and she thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a great experience, there was something that took control of her that forced her to say no and forced her to remain by herself and alone and secluded. And just reading those words, it just again gave me an idea of what it might be like. Of course, again, I can't even speak to that because I haven't had that experience, but it just helped me to understand someone else a little bit better, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like every time you read that book, you're going to be picking up something new, and because of that, I want to have it so I can go back and read it again and digest it in a different way that I may not have been able to do before. So of course, I didn't charge my battery beforehand, so I had to charge it, which is why the lighting looks so much different, because it's quite a bit later than when it was when I started filming. The next book that I was able to read in the month of May is Landline by Rainbow Rowell. The main character of this book is Georgie McCool. Yes, that is her real name. Georgie is married with 2 children. At the beginning of the book, it is roughly around Christmas time, and the family is about to make their way to Omaha to visit her husband's mother. They are currently in California. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Georgie is offered this grand opportunity to write her own TV show with a team of some of her coworkers. This means that she is not able to make the trip, which causes some tension. While the rest of her family is out with her mother-in-law, she's spending more time with her mom, her stepdad, and her sister. While she's at her mom's house, she finds that she is unable to contact her husband unless she is using a landline in her old bedroom. Now, I don't want to give too much away, but just know that whenever she calls her husband, she just finds that something is a bit different. As she is communicating with her husband and talking with him more and more, she finds ways to make her relationship right, or so she hopes. I absolutely love this book. I am such a fan of Miss Rainbow's work. Her dialogue is so relatable. The characters are so lovable, and what I also really love about her books is that it is centered on family, and for me, family is a very big part of my life. So when you see that there is someone who takes a lot of time within her writing to focus on that aspect, it's always a plus for me. If you can't tell, I am going to try to get my hands on my own copy of Landline as soon as physically possible. Next book that I was able to read in the month of May is The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry. This book focuses on our main character, Natalie Cleary, and she is a high school student who is in her senior year, and while she currently lives in Kentucky, she has the opportunity to go to a prestigious college afterwards, but this means that she has to leave her life and her family behind. Natalie is finding that she is receiving these visits from this person or individual called grandmother. This grandmother figure was a part of her life when she was younger, but as time went on and as she had different types of therapy, she noticed that she was seeing this person less and less. However, now that she is at this crossroads, she is realizing that something must be up because she is meeting with this person again. Now, the grandmother in her visits usually tells Natalie a lot of stories. By the way, Natalie is Native American and she was adopted into a European American family, and so as she's receiving these visits, grandmother is telling her these stories that are from her own cultural background, so it's nice to see the characters connecting with her roots in some way. And while she is being visited by this figure, grandmother often tells Natalie that she has a certain amount of time to save him. Of course, she doesn't know who this him is. It's a bit of a thriller because you need to know what is going to happen next, and there are some twists and turns that I wasn't quite expecting because of these experiences that Natalie has. She is introduced to someone who can help her through this. Because of that, there is a lot of sciencey, brainy information that is being thrown at you, so it can be a little heady. There were some points where I have to admit I got really confused and had to reread sections over and over again because they were explaining why Natalie was experiencing certain things. But Apart from that, I think it was really great. I think the characters were lovely and the story was really captivating for me. There is one part of the book that was not necessarily my favorite, and that is because with this love interest that Natalie meets, his name is Bo. There's a lot of physical contact, a lot of PDA, and sometimes it can be a bit much, and sometimes for me it was just annoying because it seemed like they couldn't talk to each other without touching each other. Like sometimes it just seemed a little bit unnecessary, and I would kind of roll my eyes a bit like every time like something would happen, and so then he would have to pick her up or like embrace her or something. Sometimes it just seemed unnecessary, but that was just me. If you don't have a problem with that, then I think it should be fine. With this book, I really did enjoy it, and I would say that I'm going to attempt to pick up the book for myself because it's another one where I think that you have to read it several times to get everything that the author had in mind for the reader to pick up. So I'm definitely going to try to purchase this book. The next book I was able to read is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. This book focuses on Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood. They are two sisters who are coming from this really complicated background. So throughout all of this, of course, you have your sprinklings of romance. At first, Marianne is really connected with this individual by the name of Willoughby. I think I'm saying that correctly. And he is really charismatic, really outgoing, really lovely. She thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. While that's happening, Eleanor, more reserved than Marianne is, finds someone else who is, on the same wavelength as she is. Unfortunately, they find things out about those individuals that make them question their relationships with those individuals and the possibility that they could in fact get married to these people. There are a lot of twists and turns throughout the book. I will say though that there are a lot of characters, because they're saying their last names instead of their first names, it was a little hard for me to connect to those other characters who weren't Eleanor and Marianne and the ones that were directly in their circle. So because of that, it was a little bit hard for me to get into it. But as I went along, I really started to enjoy the book. Additionally, this has to do with family, and Eleanor and Marianne, they are sisters, and they're basically looking out for each other as these people are coming in and out of their lives, so to speak. And again, like I mentioned with Landline, I love books that have to do with family, and so I very much enjoyed it. It was a bit difficult to really get into it, so sometimes I would have to force myself to continue to read chapters because I knew that something amazing would happen at the end, but I had to keep pushing myself to read it. I actually own this book, so I can't say that I would buy it again, but I definitely would read it again just to see if there were any little nuances or things that I missed. The last book I was able to read was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. This book talks about her childhood. Now, after she was born, she was sent to live with her grandmother in Stamps, Arkansas with her brother, and she goes on to explain her way of life during that time. Arkansas was segregated, and so they mentioned the discord between the blacks and the whites that lived there. And reading what she experienced, it's one of those things where you know what happened, but when you read someone's eyewitness accounts, it just makes it that much more real, and you just appreciate her life that much more. In addition to that, it's talking about how she grew up and how she came to discover herself, how she navigated being reunited with her mother and seeing her father again. And while she was with her mother, unfortunately, she was assaulted by the man that her mother was living with at the time. And so then because of that, she then has to process that whole situation, and then after a while is sent back to live with her grandmother, and then she finally goes back to live with her mom. So it's a bit of a back and forth, but you can see just the stages of her growth while she's in those different places. I very much enjoyed that book. With this book though, there are topics that are quite heavy to handle. So you are talking about the segregation in Arkansas, you are talking about the racism that her family experienced, you're talking about the sexual assault that she experienced, and just those hardships. However, if you are interested in reading about how this great woman came to be the way that she was, I would definitely go ahead and read this book. So those were all the 7 books that I was able to read in the month of May. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too much to get through, and I hope that my wrap up maybe gave you some insight in some books that you would like to read in the future. So that's all that I really have for you guys today. I hope that whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that you are having a good day. No, that you're having a great day. And I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!